Hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are in the US. Welcome to our presentation on Is Your Legacy System Holding You Back? We have a very exciting presentation in the next hour. My name is Bulin Tran. We're going to do a quick introduction. Fabiola, can you
Yeah,
move to the next slide? So just a quick introduction. I'm Bulin Tran. I'm a senior VP of financial solutions at JMT Consulting. I am in the DC area, spent most of my career serving and supporting nonprofits with the back office accounting operation, leveraging financial systems to improve operations. We have a lot to introduce today. And joining me is Fabiola. Fabiola, want to maybe do a quick intro?
of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Fabiola Hernandez. I'm a financial solutions consultant with JMT Consulting. I work with our sales and implementation teams, just doing product demonstrations of Sage Intacct and assisting in the demonstrations and post-go live training and support. Prior joining JMT, I used to do outsourced accounting for nonprofits.
Great. Thank you. So next slide, please. So we have housekeeping. If you have questions, please submit your questions in the question box on your control panel, and we will answer them at the end of the webinar. Today's recording and slides will be emailed to you following the webinar. Requirements for CP. This is a CP accredited presentation. Your participation today may earn you 1 CP credit. To receive a CP credit, actively respond to polling questions 3 out of the 4. Complete the survey that will pop up at the end of the webinar, and then also stay for the duration of the webinar. If you have technical issues, please indicate in the chat box or just email us to the email address as provided right there. So just a quick introduction in terms of who we are. So JMT was founded in 1991 to help nonprofits achieve their mission. We work exclusively with nonprofit organizations. As you can see here, we are headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee. We serve over 2,000 nonprofits across the US and a few in Canada, supporting these nonprofits with their back office accounting operations, with financial systems and accounting services as well. Next slide, please. In terms of our services, so we implement and support a cloud-based solution, which is Sage Intacct. We also support MIP. We support both of these systems for a very, very long time. And then we also implement and support budget management solutions. There are a number of these budget management tools that we support, provide outsourced accounting services. We perform accounting operation assessment work. We also assist with system integration. Some of our clients have homegrown systems or third-party systems that need to integrate with their ERP solutions, and we assist with that. We also assist with the grant management as well. Next slide. This is a CP accredited presentation, so we have some learning objectives here. Review challenges with legacy ERP solutions. We'll talk a little bit about the automate routine tasks such as accounts payable, bank rec, to free up time for strategic work. Also, we will be covering enabled real-time financial reporting and dashboard to support faster data-driven decision-making. In terms of our agenda, we wanted to talk a little bit about sort of what does the landscape of nonprofit look like today. We wanted to go over some of the challenges that nonprofit face today, and then dive into the issues that we see with legacy financial systems. We'll talk a little bit about what modern ERP systems offer, and then we will showcase some of those functionality using Sage Intacct. And then we'll wrap it up with a couple of best practice or takeaways. So before we start, we have a polling questions. If folks can just take a few seconds just to answer. What is your current accounting system? And so it would be interesting to see what folks are on today. Oh, majority of the folks are on Sage Intacct. We've got some that are on MIP, a few that are on QuickBooks. It's good to know we have a good mix of folks. So this should be a pretty good presentation. That's what we're hoping to get. So let's move to the next slide, evolving nonprofit landscape. So let's talk a little bit about sort of, what's the temperature like? What are some of the challenges that nonprofits are facing? So one of the items that you see here we mentioned is the volatile funding sources and stricter compliance. So nonprofits are facing unpredictable revenue due to shift in government policy. There could be donor behavior, there'll be changes in donor behavior and economic instability. This is compounded by increasing regulatory scrutiny from grantors and government agencies. So, one of the things that, I think, nonprofits, that's key to nonprofits is how do we address that, and, one area that, we'll talk about later on is really an ability to, from a compliance perspective, an ability to quickly report on what's restricted and what's unrestricted, right? That's a very, for any nonprofit that are grant funded, especially if you're, grant funded. Actually, it doesn't even have to be federal. It could be even, grant funded that is state or even foundations. If there's restrictions associated with that, you want to make sure that your reporting is in compliance with that. Another area is increase in demand for transparency, program outcome, and impact reporting. So that's another area that is very important with nonprofits. Funders and stakeholders expect clear evidence of how money is spent and what outcomes are achieved. So we want to make sure that we're able to report against that. Fabio, what other items that nonprofits face today? What are some of the other challenges?
I agree with everything that you're saying. I think that one other area is sometimes there's silos in between the teams of communication and and we're gonna see that moving forward, how these ERP solutions that are cloud-based, how they can help us streamline that communication, not only in our finance and accounting teams, but also across other departments in the organization as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. And then the other thing is, as nonprofits funding are impacted, it's also impacting their resource. And I think it's important that for folks that are impacted by this is to make sure that you're leveraging everything that the system can do to automate that process with less resources to achieve the end results, right? So we have other two items here. I don't want to go too much into this because we have a lot to cover, but strategic role of the CFO and finance leaders is expecting beyond the back office, right? There's the role of CFO is expanding. And then lastly, there's a need for more strategic planning, shorter close cycle. It's really, really important. I think we even have a webinar in September specifically on this very topic, and which is it's so important to be able to have a short month-end close process because you don't want to spend too much time looking back. You want to spend more time looking forward. And how do we achieve that? All right, that's great. Next slide, please. So in terms of what we see are some of the challenges, and we come across this very frequently because we do work with many nonprofits and, working with them to transition these organizations from their legacy systems over to a more modern system like Sage Intacct. So on-premise solutions, this is an area that not many legacy systems leverage is having it on-premise. Now, on-premise could also be it doesn't necessarily mean that it's in the closet, it's on site, but many organizations have it in the cloud, meaning it's being hosted, but it's not cloud-based at the end of the day. You would still need to remote in, and there's usually high maintenance associated with that. And Fabia, what other legacy, features of legacy systems do you come across?
Yeah, so we actually have a couple here. The inflexible chart of account structure, meaning that older systems often rely on long segmented account strings that are hard to manage, and they're prone to error. Without dimensions or like department grant project that are separate and not in a string format, the reporting requires heavy manipulation in Excel, and modern systems offer that dimensional accounting that's cleaner, more intuitive, and scalable. Another point here that we have is the limited real-time visibility in reporting. So many legacy systems don't provide live data. Reports are often delayed, static, or manually compiled, and this slows down the decision making and makes it difficult to react to urgent financial needs. One of the other points here is the lack of scalability and growth. So as organizations expand their services, legacy systems often become bottlenecks. So when you're adding new entities or funds or programs, it often requires significant IT involvement or costly workarounds. So you want a system that's scalable, that is going to allow you to grow without needing to reinvent your processes. Boleyn, would you like to speak on the last two?
Yeah, manual process lead to inefficiencies and human error. I think anytime, I always say that anytime you're taking data out of the system and you're doing stuff in Excel, you're putting, there's risk in terms of the data being incorrect, right? And we come across the situation, especially in reporting, when you're exporting data out and you always, are asking, your colleague, is this the final Excel file or is this the final Excel? Like which is the final, So you always get into that scenario, and I think it's very dangerous to get into that situation. What you really want is the system to be able to produce what I call board quality report. And what that means is that your system should be sort of the one source of truth. And if you have to do anything outside of system, you're just exposing yourself to human error. And then the inability to respond to real time during crisis or opportunities, when your leadership is need a certain report or need certain data, it should not be a fire drill. You should be able to go into the system and be able to quickly you know able to run a report to get that data that you need. The other thing I wanted to say is, we use the word legacy. I want to be careful with that because when we talk in terms of legacy, we're talking in terms of systems that have been around since like the 80s, right? They've been around for a long time. They tend to be client server application. But some of the things that we talk about here may not necessarily be what I consider a legacy financial system. It could be a modern system that just doesn't have those functionalities in place, right? And so, I think what we're going to be talking about later on are some of the what I call more modern cloud-based solutions that addresses some of these limitations that legacy systems have. Next slide, please. All right, so we get to our polling question number 2. What is your biggest challenge with your current accounting solution? Is it the manual processes? Is there a lack of reporting visibility? Is there a limited integration with other systems? Because that could be a challenge. There's some of these systems may not have open API. So if it doesn't, then there's no integration capabilities, you know. And then it takes too long to close the month. That's always a challenge. Or other, you know. So let's take a look at what our audiences say. Manual processes, yep. Limited integration with other systems, takes too long to close a month. Yeah, these are very common things that we see. All right, and hopefully we can address some of that. So what modern ERP system offers? So first of all, automation, AI, workflow. And I would say automation and workflows are probably similar. These systems allow you to, it has a workflow embedded so that you can utilize third-party solutions for workflow, but you don't have to. It's embedded into the solutions, and many of these solutions they're getting better in terms of what it can do. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about Sage. There's a lot of systems we could be talking about, but I'll explain why we're positioning Sage. But yeah, absolutely. Workflow is something that many of these systems have. Real-time visibility to information with the dashboards and the financial report. You should be able to. Basically, the dashboard gives you a self-service capability to these system to your information, right? Gabriella, I'm gonna let you take the next one.
Yeah, of course. The other item we have here is the audit readiness. So the ability to have built-in audit trails and document attachment, support transparency, accountability. It makes it easier to prepare for grant reviews, board meetings, or compliance checks. So you don't have to scramble and you have everything traceable and all in one place. The next point we have here is the AI and machine learning in action. Like Belinda was saying, automation is a very big thing, and a lot of the new ERP solutions are coming up with ways to have AI involved in their processes. So some platforms use AI to flag anomalies, predict trends, or suggest entries based on historical data. This is just going to help you reduce risk, but also spot irregularities before they become an issue. So it's helping your finance team be smarter, and faster, not just more efficient. It also has the flexibility and scalability. So whether you're managing 3 funds or 300, a modern ERP can grow with you. So you can add programs, entities, users, or different approval layers without having to overhaul your system. It's easy to adapt to new reporting requirements or organizational changes. And with the growing third-party solutions with native integration, what we mean is that modern ERPs also play well with others, whether it's Salesforce, Expensify, Bill.com, or payroll platforms. Native integrations mean that the data flows automatically and securely. You don't have to have duplicate data entry, and your ERP becomes that central hub that is connecting your full tech ecosystem.
Yeah, and I wanted to just go back and mention a little bit about scalability. And as you work with these systems, it is an investment, and it's and I emphasize that because when it comes to traditional legacy. It's, you buy the software, you make the initial investment, and then maybe you pay like an incremental fee every year. That's not the case with these systems. You're paying for it every year, the full amount, because it's not, it's not you don't own it. You're essentially leasing it, for lack of a better word here. And so they push new features out. And so you're buying it every year. You want to make sure that you're leveraging what these new features are. So it's really important, I think, as you're using the systems, yes, you'll go through like an initial implementation, but make sure that you're, work with a partner, make sure you learn some of these new features that are released, whether it's quarterly release or, twice a year kind of thing. You want to make sure that you are investing in the solutions. And it takes time to grow with these systems because there's so much functionality involved, right? And so, it'll take you time to build on the solution. Next. All right, so we come to the point where we're going to be taking a look at some of the features that we've been talking about. Now, there are a number of modern ERP. I will say Sage Intacct is not one of, I mean, it's not the only one. However, if you're, we at JMT only work with nonprofits, and in the not-for-profit space, Sage Intacct is extremely popular. It's very popular. And there's a very large community, user community within Sage, and they're all nonprofits. So we could be showing you other solutions because obviously, I mean, we do compete with other solutions, so we know that there are other modern ERP solutions out there, but we won't be able to show you all of them. We just don't have the capacity, and we're well versed on Sage. And so what we wanted to do is show you some of these common features, but note that these common features that we're showing you do exist in other systems. In terms of the features, like, the intricate features of them, they may differ a little bit, but they're all going to be cloud-based. They're all going to have dashboards, they're all going to be, most of them are all going to be dimensional based, and they have workflow. So we're just giving you an example of what it would look like with Sage.
Yeah, so some of those items are that they're cloud-based. You have the dashboards and collaboration, the dimension structure, automation and workflow, bank feeds, and integrations. So let me get started with changing the screen to Sage Intacct. So like Bulin said, we're using Sage Intacct for illustration purposes because it's one we know well and work with frequently. But everything we're going to be highlighting today are features that you should expect from any modern cloud-based ERP system. And if you are exploring other systems, these are some of those common features that we recommend that your system should have. So one of the first thing is that it's cloud-based. As you can see, I'm logged in my Google Chrome. It's a URL web browser. You sign in with your credentials, so your username and password. You can log in securely from anywhere at any time, even if you're on the go. You can do it with your phone. Because it's cloud-based, they all have kind of this user-friendly phone interface. So the web browser is going to adapt to the functionality of your phone. There are no user-to-user interruptions. And real-time access means better collaboration across your teams. So right now, I'm showing you a controller dashboard. So like Bulin also mentioned, a lot of ERP systems have dashboards where you can review your most frequented reports or KPI metrics. Intacct can host a bunch of different dashboards for different roles. But the cool thing about the dashboards that's important to know is that you can filter by the date, different departments, projects, grants, entities. So right now, all of this information is for the whole organization, but maybe if I want to select on how my program services are performing, I can just apply that filter and everything within my dashboard is going to be updated to that particular filter I just established. You can also utilize your dashboard to track tasks. So here I have my most frequented tasks, my approval list. If I want to click on them, it's just going to take me to the overall queue of those approvals of what I have to review to approve or decline. I also have here my most frequented reports. I can also review my close through summary. So for example, if I want to see how all of my subledgers are doing, it varies by entity because I have a multi-entity environment, but I can also see how those entities are doing in sense of have they all been closed as of last month or what is the current status of that. A lot of these ERP solutions, that's one thing that I don't have here in my dashboard, but they all seem to have checklists. So checklist is just a task tracker, and let me look for it really quickly. What checklists allow you to do is to literally create a task, for example, your month end close, and you're going to be able to make assignments for that process. So review, close your AR accounts, your allocations, your bank rec, whatever it is in your month end process, you can create tasks for all of that within your checklist, add the beginning and end dates of those assignments, who's going to be assigned, and also track the status of this information, how long they've been completed. They can add attachments, comments, anything like that. You can add these checklists to your dashboard so you're constantly monitoring them as well, and just make sure that everything is being done in a timely fashion. You can also use them for grant tracking purposes. Just make sure that the overall award process is running smoothly, maybe your audit process, prep for audit, all of that. Another thing that you can have within the dashboards in Intacct is this collaboration tool. So if you see here, I have this little messaging box. So Collaborate, what it is a communication tool within Intacct. It allows you to communicate within anyone that's a user within Intacct. You can also receive the communications through your email if you want to receive those communications. But what this allows you to do is it enhances communication and document management within the system, streamlining your workflow and keeping all relevant information in one place. You can collaborate within the transaction record, within your vendor or grant records, within the dashboard. I can here click on snapshot and I can take a quick snapshot. So basically like a screenshot of this report and tag anyone within the organization to ask them, if I have a question about this report, maybe why is my year to date here in red, my year to date budget? I can ask anyone a question within the organization just to get a better understanding of what's going on. I can add attachments, I can add links, and I can tag anyone. And if I expand here, I'm going to be able to just expand the whole collaboration and just make it a bigger instant messaging tool. So here, for example, in this grant record, I asked Carla, could you add the grant award? So if I click on that record, it's going to take me directly into that grant 100. I can review the additional information attachment section and see that there's nothing there. But the important thing is that the message I added is embedded into that grant record. So even for audit purposes, you're always going to have that communication there.
You know, I love the collaborate. It's such a powerful tool because it will allow you right there on the dashboard as you're working with your leadership team, enabling them to communicate with you right on this dashboard. Now, we do have a very busy dashboard, so there's a lot of stuff here. But in reality, when we work with our clients, it's not as busy as this. There's probably, two reports, right? It's not about the quantity of information, it's about the quality of information that you put out there. But the tool really allows you to have that dialogue back and forth and having it capture right here within the system. And it's just, I think it's a more efficient tool than try to utilize, anything that's outside of the system, whether it's team or whether it's email, whatever you do outside of the system, it is still outside of the system. Um, and I think Fabiola, you were talking about checklists. One of the things, and we were talking about month-end checklists. One of the things also to keep in mind is at the end of the day, checklist is just a tool. And I have come across where clients may be using this tool not just for month-end purposes, but you could also, once you set up this tool, you can replicate, duplicate it. But you can also use a checklist, let's just say, if you're a grantor, you can use it to manage your grant process. That's another area. It could also be a year-end audit checklist as well. So it's a tool that you can use however you like, right? It's just a tool that you can manage your process.
Thanks, Belen, for that. I also wanted to jump into dimensions a little bit and show you how they typically look like in your ERP systems. Dimensions is the same as segments, as other systems might call them. They all call them different terms, but this is a modern way of just structuring your data without blowing up your chart of accounts and having a string type of segmented chart of accounts. So this one is just one dimension in Intacct, is the department dimension. The reason I wanted to show it is because you can have a hierarchy type of display. So this is basically a parent-child relationship. So for example, if I want to see all of my program services, I have underneath these particular departments. Or underneath admin and overhead, I have underneath as a child, my finance, legal and compliance, communications, HR, whatever it is related to admin and overhead. If I click here into one of these records, you're able to add the parent as easy as that. So everything within Intacct is pretty user-friendly. It's made for accountants, so that's really important to keep in mind. There's no IT needed in the setup of these items. You can track also things like initiatives, programs, awareness campaigns, or anything else that matters to your mission. The great thing about tracking initiatives like this is that, and let me show you really quickly, is that you can have department groups. So besides tracking your separate individual dimensions, whether for departments, grants, funders, whatever it is, you can also create groups of your dimensions. So you can group departments by categories like overhead or programs. This one is the awareness initiative that we were just looking at. And in my filter, I'm just selecting my initiative for awareness. And what that's going to allow me to do is in a report, I can just select all of my awareness initiatives and they're all going to pop up in a report. And if they have data, of course, then that data is going to be displayed. Or I can just hand pick them. So for example, this one, to program focus, I can just select my 2 specific programs that I want to see in this particular group and then use it for reporting purposes. So I can hand pick them one by one for tailored reporting.
And those two programs may not be related in any way, right? You just basically select those two because that's what you wanted to see in the financials.
Correct. Yes, correct. Now, let's talk a little bit about AP automation as well. This is a very big important point in the ERP world. It's becoming basically a standard in today's world. A great example to showcase automation is accounts payable. So modern systems use OCR, so optical character recognition, which means you can upload or email invoices and the system will read and extract the data automatically. So here, for example, these are some invoices that I either have uploaded or sent by email. I can see who the sender is. I can also hover over these little import exceptions and it's going to give me the warning. So this one is because no matching vendor was found because the vendor doesn't exist. This one, the AI detected that there are duplicate bills, right? So the system is actually reading the invoice that I uploaded or emailed. It's populating the vendor, the GL account and amounts. It also attaches that invoice automatically to the bill here. And all that your team needs to do is review it and make sure that all of the attributes are correct and then submit it for approval. So for example, this is a bill that was coded by AI, and this is actually a bill that I got from the internet. I just searched for a Lenovo bill and this one popped up. But you can see here that it has different line items for the amounts. And it has at the top the overall Lenovo vendor and the dates. And the AI actually grabbed my dates from the invoice, the vendor name. It also grabbed the terms, it added the attachment, and it broke out the bill also in those different lines. It coded it based on the coding that I typically use for this vendor, and it also added the memos from the actual invoice. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is that over time, what this does is that the AI tool is basically learning from you. So you need to be the teacher here. It's learning from your corrections. The more that you use it, the more that it's learning. If it makes a mistake, just correct it, and the system will learn from those. So it's going to help your finance team work smarter, not harder. The next thing is workflows and approvals. So here in this invoice was actually declined. I just wanted to show you a declined bill just to highlight the workflow feature. So most ERP systems offer configurable approval workflows where you can route transactions by the amount, the department, the vendor, and other attributes. So the key takeaway here is that you need a system that is recording every action. So for example, this one was declined and it is recorded, and you can also see the comment that individual that declined it also made. It's all recorded within the record. Whether it was approved, same thing, it would also be recorded there. So any comments are within the record for full transparency and audit readiness. So approvers can review via email notifications or directly from their dashboard queues, like I showed earlier. And within every record, you have audit trails. And this is very important just to make sure if there's any changes on before or after values, which users within the system might have created those changes and on what date and time. And of course, this is incredibly helpful for audit purposes. Anything that you wanted to add here, Bulin?
So one of the things I've always said is that the system is very forgiving. We all are people at the end of the day, and the system tries to do its best in terms of coding. And we as human being, we're going to review, but things get missed, right? You post something that you send something across that might not be correct, and it gets approved and it's in the system. But one of the things I've always said is that the system is very forgiving. What that means is that if something is that was posted in error, depending on how you set up the system and depending on the permission you give yourself, right, you can go in and reclassify the transactions. Essentially, they call it reclassify, but essentially it's recoding it, right? So again, it depends on how you set it up. With workflow and all, we went through the approval, right? And you're changing it after approval, so there's a little bit of limitation to that. But it is very forgiving. I think that, and I've supported, legacy systems for many, many years. A lot of these systems will not allow you to make any corrections after it has been posted. You'll have to book a reclass entry to reflect, you have to back it out and then post the correcting entry. But this system allows you to do that, depending on permission and how you're configured.
That's correct. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to show really quickly was that modern ERP systems help you close faster. And one way they do that is through bank feed automation. So with Intacct and other platforms, you can automatically import in your bank and credit card transactions every few hours. They Nowadays you can actually link your financial institution with the ARP system, so that information is flowing in the back end and they get updated. I would say I've seen it in Intacct happen every 10 minutes to every 4 hours. But you can leverage rules like these ones, match and creation rules within modern ERP solutions to automate transactions. So the matching rules, what it does is it's looking at the data that you already have in your accounting system, and it's looking at the data that was fed from your financial institution, and it's just doing that auto matching for you on the back end. Or you can also create new transactions for you, meaning it's generating missing entries like bank fees, interest payments, or recurring credit card charges. So let me show you really quickly transactions that have been matched in the reconciliation. So if I go to my match state and apply this filter, these Santander transactions, if I click here on the match, it's going to show me how they were matched on the back end. So the system automatically matched this transaction for me. And if I click here on the hyperlink, it's just going to take me directly to the rule that was created. I created a rule for that credit card transaction that whenever on the bank side, whenever a transaction was fed from the bank that contained the description Santander, to go ahead and generate this specific journal entry for me. So I established that journal entry, I established a rule, and then the system, whenever it sees a vendor by that name, it creates it and automatically matches it for me in the reconciliation process. If by any case it's incorrect, maybe there's a glitch, I can unmatch it from the reconciliation and make the necessary changes. So what this is going to allow your finance team to do is review and reconcile quicker. It's that simple. This means that you're not waiting until month end to do your month end close. Since the transactions are being synced so quickly within these solutions, you can actually be recording them every single day if you want to, making your month end close easier and quicker with the rules, everything being matched on the back end for you. Then you just come in here, review whatever is left that's unmatched, match it, and then hit that reconcile button. So you can close on the 30th of the month or even earlier in 1 or 2 days after the month end close. Anything else, Belinda, that you wanted to add before I move on to?
So Fabiola, it's really a one-time investment, isn't it? Like you set this up, it's a one-time configuration investment that the organization would make. And then once you set this up one time, it will, once you launch it, it will do all of these clearing and it'll, the creation, it'll create entries as needed. It does all of that for you.
Yeah, that's correct. It's just a one-time setup. You set the rules up once and then they're automatically happening in the back end. What your finance team just needs to do is review those transactions that were matched at the end of the month, make sure that everything's accurate, running smoothly. If new vendors come along that you need to set up new rules, it's super quick and simple because you're setting up maybe 1 or 2 new rules for those particular cases. But yeah, it's a one-time setup, and then your close process is pretty automated.
It's great.
So the last thing I had here is integrations and flexibility. And I wanted to wrap up with this because modern ERP systems, they all should offer an open API for connecting with other platforms like CRMs, fundraising systems, or HR tools, but also a strong import-export process, which is still essential. We all work in Excel. It's our day-to-day life, especially in accounting, and I don't think Excel is going to go away anytime soon. So it's important to have a tool that is going to be able to also support a simple import-export process. So I just wanted to show you one really quickly. I have a file around here that I can just slide in and import. And what I wanted to show you is that um, look for easy templates. So Intacct has templates for everything that you need to import within the system. It has also smart error detection. So here I just imported, let me show you what I just imported. I imported 3 journal entries for different periods. So for 2025, 2026, and 2027. And they're all 3 different journal entries, but one, as you can see, had an error because it's not balancing. My debit is off by $500 or my credit is off by 500. And then the other 2 were correct. And the cool thing about these systems is that they have that smart error detection. The system was able to detect 2 successful records and 1 that had an error. And if I click this link and download it, the system is actually going to show me it's trying to isolate that error that was in my file. So now my import template is different. I don't have those 2 other journal entries at the bottom. I just have that one that had the error, and it's because of that 500 amount. If I also just really quickly move my email here, you can also receive that email notification. And then the system is also able to detect that the transaction is out of balance by $500 in the credit side, which is really cool. So, and then you can just quickly make any type of corrections that you need to do. So yeah, it just helps your finance team find those errors faster when you're importing information into the system. And then lastly, the other thing I wanted to quickly mention is besides import export is that open API connection. Intacct actually has a marketplace. It's this URL right here, so marketplace.intacct.com, where all of the vetted third-party tools that you can plug into basically live, all of the applications that they integrate with, and they just allow your system to be enhanced even further. So yeah, you can search for anything in particular and see which solutions also integrate with Intacct.
That's great. You know, one of the things I've always recommend to client is to look at what your current systems can provide you. You know, if you're say if you're already on Sage, before you go out and start looking at third-party solutions, take a look at what you already have. And if it's not meeting your needs, you want greater functionality, that's where the marketplace comes in, because a lot of these marketplace solutions are very focused on a specific area. Like if it was AP automation, that's all it does is an AP automation. So there's a lot of functionality that is tied into that. So, but I always start with, taking a look at what you have first before you bring in a third party, because usually when you bring in a third party, that tend to increase your cost, in your investment. So that's great. I think we've covered all of this. So it comes to our polling question. How many more years do you think your current accounting system will be able to support your organization's need? So if you're already on a modern ERP, I would say, they should last you pretty long time. Also, I've been supporting ERP system for my entire career, and I've clients that are on legacy. They were on back then it wasn't a legacy, and they've been on that system for 20 plus years. Once you select a system, you tend to stay with it for a very long time. But if you're on legacy, that can be challenging. So great. We have a few that are 1 to 2 years, but it's good to see the majority of the users here are in 5, 7 plus years. We should probably have one that is 7 plus years, and then we have a few that is already beyond its useful life. So, all right. Maybe we can help. Maybe we can help. So best practice, this is really sort of the takeaway. evaluate if you have maximize your current solution. So, anytime you're moving off of a solution to another solution is very disruptive. And, I mean, I'm an accountant. I work with a lot of nonprofit accounting folks, and for me, I will say that I'm very conservative, right? So we don't really change system frequently, and so you want to make sure that you maximize what you currently have before you look at something else. Um, Evaluate system fit every 3 to 5 years. So I would, we say 3 to 5 years. So I would even say you should evaluate your system fit, and not necessarily to move off the system, but your operation changes. It doesn't stay static, right? Your operation changes, and it changes because there could be external factors that are impacting your operation, such as funding, fund resources, funding sources, right, may change, right? So it's important to make sure that how is your system supporting you today? So always evaluate that system fit scenario. If you can do it annually, that's great, but at least once every other year. So you always want to take a look at your maximizing the use of your system. Um, Include key stakeholders in decision making. So you wanted to make sure that you're including the key players as you are certainly as you're going through the evaluation process, because the system is not standalone, because these systems, what they tend to do is they tend to be the one source of truth. So it's bringing data from other sources as well. And so you want to make sure that these other sources and the folks that are managing the data from these other sources, right? These data owners are involved in this process with you. Document pain points and reporting needs. So you don't have to go crazy with this, but you definitely wanted to highlight some of your documents, some of your pain points, and what you need at the end of the day. And we talk about reporting because at the end of the reporting is one of the product that is produced right from your system. It represents the sort of the end game, the results of or the information, the data that is being pushed into the system. So you wanted to make sure you highlight what are the pain points and what are your requirements essentially, right? And then prioritize cloud-based scalable solutions. So take a look at what are some of the solutions out there. You should absolutely dot the i's and cross the t's and evaluate solutions to make sure best fit. And whenever we talk about best fit and what that evaluation process looks like, I usually say in 4 areas. One is it's got to do what you need to do. Secondly, you want to make sure that the folks are helping you with this transition or implementation of system knows your industries, right? And you can have the best car, but you don't have the right driver, you're still going to get lost. Third is that this thing can't cost you millions. So cost is definitely a factor. And then lastly, adoption. So you could have the best system. Adoption is so critical. You have to be able to adapt to the new service. If you can't adapt to it, you're not maximizing the use of the system. Now, the next item here is standardize and simplify your chart of accounts. So you could do that before. If you already know that it is not working, you can do some homework ahead of time, right? So start planning ahead. What do you envision your structure should look like to yield the results that you're looking for? Automate manual process where possible. So you're not swapping one car with the other. Absolutely not, right? So these systems are meant to provide you with the automation and really changing your processes, right? And reduce the manual and the time really it takes you to do things, task, in the system. Then plan early for data cleanup and migration. So some folks don't, the data is absolutely clean, but that's not always the case. So, you want to just make sure, just your sub ledger reconcile to the general ledger. So you wanted to make sure that your data is clean. You generally, when folks are working with you to implement the systems, they'll make some recommendations such as, well, we're probably not going to bring all the vendors over, right? Because you've got old vendors. We probably want to bring over vendors maybe where you've done business the last year or two. So they'll be, the consultant should be able to provide some recommendation, best practices in terms of how you want to implement the new system. But I mean, if you know that you've got data cleanup, you want to start that early and you want to make sure that you catch up. And the other thing is cutover date is critical. So you wanted to make sure you focus on that cutover. Focus on training to drive adoption. So we talked about adoption as being critical. Training is an important area to drive adoptions. The folks who are helping you implement should think about not just talking about the new features of the system, they should be focused also on how you adapt to the new features of the new system. And it has to do with how people think. Because folks have been using the old system probably for 15 to 20 years, their mind is already wired in a certain way. You wanted to make sure how you can make some tweaks to the system so that when they do shift, it's not a major change for them, but a manageable change, and then slowly build on that. And that is part of the migration. We have the last question here. How if you would like us to provide more information, let us know. We will move to the next slide, please. We are always appreciate your feedback. So, we are very active as you so we do a lot of presentations. They are recorded, they're on our website, but we're always welcome feedback. We love to hear from you in terms of there's any topics that you would like us to present. We always love to do thought leadership presentation where we talk about accounting, operations, and then talk about how technology comes into play and support that, right? So
So
please provide any feedback you may have. Yes?
we have some questions here in the chat really quickly.
Yep.
Robin asked, what are the largest problems staff have seen that we should be aware of after converting to Sage?
I think the largest problem that staff may see is that there's a lot that you're learning initially. So I think one of the things that we try to do is really learning the new system, but taking it slowly, and we try to get the training close to the go live date. It's all about adoption and wanting to make sure that the staff is trained and making sure that staff know that they have any questions, who to go out to, who to reach out to. We always recommend a focal point of contact because we don't want 5 people asking the same question, right? So focal point and making sure that whoever you're working with address those questions as quickly as possible, because once you go live, any questions you have is critical. So just be aware of making sure that folks are well trained, and if there's any questions, they have a point of contact. Can we get these slides? Yes, we can. This is recorded, of course we can send that.
And will the CPE
Yes.
certificate be emailed?
Yes, it will.
And lastly, our upcoming webinars.
Yeah,
so we have, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, please, Fabiola, please.
Yeah, I was gonna say that we have upcoming the Long Island Rise and Learn. It's in New York in July 24th, so in 2 days, and Bulin is actually going to be present there. So if you are in the area and want to go to, it's a lunch and learn, right?
No, it's actually
no.
breakfast and learn. So
Breakfast
we
and
call it
learn.
rise and learn. It sounds weird because I'm more comfortable saying lunch and learn, but it's a rise and learn. And it's 8 o'clock in the morning, so very early.
And we also have 3 other upcoming webinars, one in July, then August and September, just simplifying ERP data integration for nonprofits, what's new in Sage Intacct, our 3 release, and managing your nonprofit's future, not just its past. And if you want to register, we have here our resource, but it's also in our website under our events.
Yeah, so we hope to see everyone soon in the upcoming webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. So I think hopefully this presentation is helpful for everyone. Appreciate your time and thanks for attending. Thank you, Fabiola.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Billy.
Thank you.